Well, greetings and salutations, and welcome once again to the Newsman Weekly podcast. Thanks again to local country singer Luke Watson for crafting this show's theme song, which, based upon music after hours and a high school football reunion for me this weekend, I think Smoke and Drink was probably the theme of the weekend. I am joined again this morning by Zac Hiser, the show's executive producer. Good morning, Zac.
Morning, Carl.
And we're also joined by Knox Page's reporter Grant Ritchey, our videographer.
What's up?
Whose video skills, not including interjecting in the middle of my sentence, whose video skills every week I think he's actively playing defense against my ability to do this show.
It makes you better.
Yeah, okay. His video skills have improved to the point we're actually allowing him to post them on YouTube. Good morning, Richie.
Hey, how's it going? Sorry for interrupting.
That's all right. Now, you actually are posting these on some YouTube channel now?
Yeah, so I should probably explain that. So,
no, please do.
All right, so it's on, there's a few episodes on, you go on youtube.com and then you type in Newsman Weekly, all one word. But we're going to move that over to the Richland Source YouTube channel where we post some other videos and some Source daily clips. We're going to move that over for this episode, but if you want to watch the old episodes, go on YouTube and type in Newsman Weekly, one word. Again, that's Newsman Weekly, and we're going to be moving that over to the Richland Source YouTube channel.
Yeah, the powers that be said we couldn't put anything on the official Richland Source YouTube channel until it reached a level of sophistication that, quite honestly, has eluded you to this point, but now it seems like we're finally there.
It's more like we couldn't get the login for
well, that happens too, but that's not nearly as much fun of a story to tell.
Yeah, like Carl's story.
All right, gentlemen, here we are, our 13th episode of the Newsman Weekly. Lucky 13. I have never been somebody who's experienced triskaidekaphobia. What is that, Richie?
It's being afraid of the number 13, right?
The number 13, the intense and irrational fear of the number 13. We also just experienced a Friday the 13th, which many believe is the unluckiest of days.
I watched the Apollo 13 documentary on Netflix the other night, too.
Houston, we have a problem.
I fell asleep, so no spoilers.
All right. Well, okay, then I won't tell you that they all died in space, but no, that's not true. Personally, any day that brings an end to the normal work week is one I would never consider to be unlucky. Hey, we got another great show lined up for you today. In a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Source reporters Katie Ellington Serrao, Grace McCormick, and Mariah Thomas. They recently completed a massive project called Tomorrow's Talent. It's a wide-ranging series that explored North Central Ohio's workforce trends. They also looked at how different organizations, including businesses and schools, are adapting to current challenges. They're going to join us to talk about what they learned during the project, maybe offer some insights on what may come next, and we're also going to play a little game with them at the end, so you might want to stick around for that. They don't know it's coming, so it should be interesting. But before we get into all of that, let's talk about the weekend, gentlemen. What'd you do for fun? And Zac, we'll start with you.
Well, Friday night, we hosted a successful newsroom after hours down in our basement here at Richland Source. There's 5 bands, free beer.
Free beer.
Free food.
Free food.
There was skateboarding. Skate Ohio came out, brought ramps and rails, raffled off a skateboard and a T-shirt.
Nice.
It was a very successful night, and it was a lot of fun.
Wait, I saw a picture of somebody with fire.
There were some fire twirlers and fire breathers that came out. I didn't even know I didn't hire them or anything. Okay. They just came out. I was like, yeah, absolutely. That's always fun.
Did anybody see Richie and the fire twirlers together? Could he have been one of the fire twirlers?
He could have been. He was looking like a young Bob Dylan serving drinks behind the bar. He looked real cool.
Yeah. Richie schlepping drinks.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, Richie, what about you? What kind of madness did you experience down in Knox County this weekend, if any?
Yeah, so like Zac said, I was there for After Hours Friday. A lot of fun. Really a shout out to the jam band Wanted Alien at the end. They were really good. Saturday, I was at a groundbreaking for an event venue center for camp because I said I would.
Camp?
Yeah, well, it's a camp, and then the camp is called Because I Said I Would.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's from, well, it's kind of like a social movement, teaches mental health resilience.
This isn't a cult, is it? I mean, you're not joined a cult, have you?
No, just, yeah. But yeah, they actually had a fire last year where the event center actually burned down due to an electrical fire. So they had a groundbreaking for the new center that they're putting there in its place. And there's some TED Talks of the founder, Alex Sheen, talking about it and the whole movement and stuff. So the camp is actually east in Knox County, kind of on the border between that and Licking. So the story went live today on Knox Pages, so if you want to check that out.
Nice. All right. Well, I took a rare Friday night off, gentlemen. I made the trip down to New Concord, Ohio, which is a little village in eastern Muskingum County, about an hour east of Columbus, right off of Interstate 70. If you've ever driven on 70 east of Columbus toward Wheeling, you've passed New Concord at one point or another. You just probably
never noticed it.
I was there to participate as my high school football team from 1978 was inducted into the John Glenn High School Hall of Fame.
Glory days.
46 years.
Wow.
I'm not sure what triggered what suddenly happened that they remembered, but after we posted the first 10-0 season in school history and became the school's first Final Four participant when we played in the Class AA state semifinals. I was an average player on a team filled with great players. We had a great senior class, 47-man roster, 23 of which were seniors. And nearly all of us had played together since the 7th grade. And I think that makes a huge difference.
This was your senior year as well?
Yep, because I graduated in 79, so this was the 78 season. The ceremony took place before a game between John Glenn and Coshocton, which the 3-1 Muskies won handily. We did stay until halftime, and John Glenn was well ahead, so there's about 15 of us there from the team, so we decided to exit and find a place for some road sodas and tell bigger lies than we'd already been telling earlier that evening.
And what position did you play on this championship team?
I was a wing back.
Okay.
Which in a I formation offense is a faster tackle.
Okay.
I might have carried the ball 5 times the entire season, but we had a fullback that rushed for 1,200 yards and a tailback that rushed for 1,400 yards. And we threw the ball 40 times in 10 games. Okay, we had like 10 plays, but we'd run those 10 plays since the 7th grade. And it's similar to Lucas with the wing team. That
just run it down their throats,
right.
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
You know the play's coming. You know where it's going.
You can't stop it.
Just stop it. Because we had guys on that team that will literally just knock you out of your cleats. I was not one of them, but it was great to see some old teammates and coaches and recall stories about a pretty magical time in our lives. Even ran into my high school math teacher. Shout out to Sue Thuma. Had her for Algebra 1 and then again for Senior Advanced Math. And I reminded her of the story my senior year, about a week before graduation, was taking the Senior Advanced Math final exam. Covered the last 6 weeks of the school year. And this was things like physics and trigonometry and calculus and things. I didn't know any of this stuff. But I had an A, I think, going into the final exam, and I didn't care. So I didn't open the book the last 6 weeks. So she hands out this final exam, and it's on my desk, and I look at it, and I start reading the questions out loud and laughing after each one. And each laugh gets louder and louder. And I got through like 3 of them. And Mrs. Thuma looked at me and she said, "Mr. Hunnell, why don't you take your test and go out into the hallway?" I said, "Mrs. Thuma, I'll be happy to go out in the hallway, but there's no sense me taking this test with me because I don't have a clue." So I went out in the hallway and sat in a chair during the final exam.
At least you went into journalism.
Yeah, math was not going to be my friend, but I still passed the class.
Okay.
And she and I had a good discussion about that as well. So it was very great to see Mrs. Thuma again. All right, but enough of that for now. Let's talk about some news of the week. State Fire Marshal's office continues to investigate a deadly Friday afternoon explosion that destroyed a house in Springfield Township. Killed 1 person, injured 2 others. Reporter Hayden Gray reported on the accident scene, which was along Hook Road near Crestline, and Ohio 314 filed a story on Saturday. Check the Richland Source website for details. But It's not often you see an explosion.
Yeah, it's wild.
I saw those pictures, and it's hard to imagine what blew a house apart.
Now, did Hayden call you on that story, or did he?
Well, I got an email, because even when I'm not working, I'm working. So Saturday morning in the hotel in New Concord, and they do have a hotel now, which was kind of interesting. They didn't have one when I lived there. I had an email from the local emergency management agency, which I forwarded to Hayden since he was a Saturday reporter, and I said, hey, probably ought to make some calls on this. I don't know how it didn't transpire that we reported on a Friday, but that's neither here nor there. And he did a great job. I did make a call to Bob Ball, the chief investigator for the coroner's office here in Richland County, to get the name of the woman who was killed, unfortunately, and gave that information to Hayden. And he did a great job, had great pictures from the scene, and was it a gas leak, or there just speculation? I'd say until the state fire marshal's office comes up with a cause, anything I've not heard. Yeah, and I really don't want to speculate.
Nothing official yet as of Monday morning.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, and I really don't like to speculate on things like that. Secondly, the Richland County Republican Party is looking for somebody to replace Stephanie Zader on Mansfield City Council. Resumes and letters of interest are being sought. Ritchie, you are not eligible. You don't live in the city of Mansfield.
Maybe you should apply, Carl.
I don't live in the city of Mansfield. I live in Washington Township, but thanks for asking. Zader announced August 20th she's stepping down from her position effective September 30th, which means tomorrow will be, Tuesday night will be her final city council meeting, barring an emergency session. Members of the Mansfield-Richland County Party Central Committee will select a replacement to complete the year left on Zader's term of office. They'll do interviews on October 2nd, and they'll appoint somebody October 10th. If you do want to apply, the deadline to apply is September 26th for the at-large council seat.
That's a quick October 10th. So,
well, I'd have to go back and look, but it's not an unlimited amount of time. It's like within 5 days and 10 days, the party has to pick a replacement. So
why does the Central Committee pick them?
Because the Central Committee is the part there in Mansfield. You don't want a Richland County Republican Party member who lives in Lexington picking somebody who's going to be on Mansfield City Council. So when I say Central Committee, I'm talking about people on the Richland County Republican Party who are in and representing wards in Mansfield.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So the council members are always picked by the party? Can't you run for council just as an independent?
You can run for council as an independent. I can't remember the last time somebody won.
Just rare.
Yeah, the only way you're going to be eligible right now is if you're a registered Republican.
Okay.
And that's one of the basically two requirements. You got to live in the city and you got to be a Republican. They're not going to pick a Democrat. They're not going to pick an independent. It's usually somebody who's been kind of an active member, or at least a participant in the party. And I mean, it would be the same thing if it were a Democratic council member who was retiring or leaving council. The Democrats would pick that replacement.
Right. That's interesting. I would have thought, I didn't know it was the parties that picked replacements. I thought it would be the mayor or someone in office.
Nope, it is up to the party and that's how Stephanie Zader first got on. She ended up winning an election, but she was first appointed to complete an unexpired term by these same people who will be picking her replacement. Excuse me. Oasis Love of Church in Mansfield and the City of Mansfield have announced a new partnership aimed at rejuvenating Cyclops Field on the city's north side. The new deal was announced Friday afternoon at the park by Public Works Director Louis Andres and Raymond Cochran Jr., the senior pastor at the church. I was out at the park when they had their announcement, and Raymond Cochran Jr. is a very youthful man. His church does a lot of community outreach. If you probably remember, they have one of the biggest block parties every summer, and the community is invited and everything's free. He is a church leader who believes you've got to get outside the walls of the church in order to accomplish the ministry that they're called to do. He said, quote, "It's a great time to bring people together. I want to have sports, but I also want to have mentorship for our youth, teach them the value of life. we're very grateful and very blessed to have this opportunity. In the last few years, there have been some local folks who have tried to kind of keep Cyclops Field up and going. Some success. I've talked to some over the weekend. They haven't been too fond of the previous city administration, who they felt like let them down in terms of kind of bringing that field back. They're very excited about the new partnership with the Oasis Church, and they very much would like to see Cyclops come back to being kind of the big softball, baseball, very active park that it once was.
That's great news for Mansfield, and I mean, good year for parks, right? In Mansfield, Liberty. I feel like I'm missing another one, but with Cyclops, I mean, obviously
North
the sports
Lake,
complex
Johns Park.
coming down in Belleville next year, groundbreaking.
I mean, I knew, and that's part of the reason the very first ever guest we had on the Newsman Weekly podcast was Louis Andres, because I knew with his background that parks was going to be something. Mayor Jody Perry believes in parks and public spaces and green spaces, and I think when Louis took the job, that was going to be a big goal for him, and I think we've certainly seen that play out over the last 9 months or so. Speaking of things being redeveloped, the demolition of the former Westinghouse site on Mansfield's east side might actually be done by the end of November, according to Richland County Land Bank officials. That's if R&D Excavating from Crestline, which has been working at this nearly 14-acre site for almost 2 years, doesn't encounter any more underground pits. The $6 million plus project has been funded largely with state grants and American Rescue Plan Act funds from the City of Mansfield and also Richland County. The land bank is considering a proposal from former Mansfield resident Marquis Stillwell that would allow him 12 months of exclusivity to develop the site. I know there's going to be some meetings coming up in the next few weeks. They're still working on that plan, but stay tuned. We might finally actually see something happen down at the old Westinghouse.
What's an underground pit?
Well, when they started digging, keep in mind that this has been a vacant site for 30 plus years. And a lot of it was what they called the concrete jungle. The A building, which was the only structure left on it, came down fairly quickly. But the rest of it was 13 acres covered in concrete. And you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And once they started jackhammering up that concrete, there used to be a company there called Baxter Stoves, way back in the day. And they had some underground pits that were there that just got covered over. When Westinghouse started using that, they just put concrete over top of everything. Okay. So you had all these huge underground pits that had to be dug out, concrete removed, and it was just a massive undertaking that everybody wondered what was underneath that ground, but nobody knew until they actually started moving it. And kudos to R&D Excavating, because that was a job that I'm sure nobody thought was going to take almost 2 years to get done. But they have worked and worked and worked out there. And I'm excited about what might come next.
Now, if you're watching on YouTube and you saw me give the finger, that wasn't to Carl. That was to Hayden Gray, our reporter. Sweet kid, but Steelers fan.
I don't even think you were in the shot, so don't worry.
Okay, all right.
I see, now you've just given it
Never
away.
mind.
All right, finally, the City of Mansfield. And Hiser, I know you'll be excited about this. You have kids of this age.
This is great.
The City of Mansfield has announced that the citywide Trick-or-Treat event is actually going to be on Halloween this year. Woohoo! Mayor Perry announced Beggar's Night will be Thursday.
Hey, come on.
That's what we used to call it, Beggar's Night. Do you guys still call it that?
No, but that's good.
Yeah, we call it Beggar's Night. It'll be Thursday, October 31st, from 5:30 to 7 p.m. across the entire city. They do encourage families and kids to kind of stay in your own neighborhood, though. Don't go. If you live on one
hitting
block,
up all the neighborhoods.
Yeah, don't think, well, I'm going to go the entire city tonight.
Right.
So, and residents, if you want to participate, be sure to turn your porch lights on during the event.
Do you give away candy, Carl?
Great
Depends.
question.
Depends. If my wife remembers to buy it, I'll sit on the front porch, and for the kids in my neighborhood in Walnut Hills that dare to make their way to my porch, I don't even wear a costume, and I think I scare kids
Maybe we
away.
should do like a live remote of you while you're giving away candy. We could do a remote episode.
There was one year, God, this has been a long time ago. I put on like a corpse-like costume, and sat there and had the candy on my lap in this bowl, and I just sat there, and the kids thought, well, this is just like a dummy. And they'd come up and they'd like reach, and then I'd take my hand and grab their hand, and that would just freak their
You probably traumatized those
Not
kids.
allowed to do that anymore.
You can't, see, that's why I don't do it anymore. It's also why my wife usually takes care of this stuff now.
And the day after Halloween is our Newsroom After Hours big hip-hop Halloween party this year. So that'll be here at Richland Source on November 1st, and it's a costume party. So if you're listening and you love the season of Halloween, come out and hang out with us on November 1st. Free show, free beer, all that stuff.
Are you going to have flame throwers back again?
We should.
I mean, if it came to that one, it's like
we've always got some fun surprises for the Halloween show.
I'll be slinging drinks.
Slinging drinks. I'll be covering football probably. But all right, that's enough for now, at least in terms of news. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll be joined by Source reporters Katie Ellington Serrao, Grace McCormick, and Mariah Thomas to talk about tomorrow's talent. Stay with us. Well, welcome back to the Newsman Weekly, and this room just got damn crowded, I got to tell you. Joining me now are Richland Source reporters Katie Ellington Serrao and Grace McCormick, and Ashland Source reporter Mariah Thomas. Good morning to all of you.
Morning. Good morning.
And thanks to all of you for almost being on time. Katie. I just realized something. Just sitting here right now, I just realized this. If you add all of your ages together, the three of you, you're about the same age as me. How in the hell did I suddenly become the oldest person in every room I'm in? I swear it was yesterday. I was the youngest little kid at the Daily Jeffersonian in Cambridge, Ohio, and now I'm triple the age of you guys. That was a rhetorical question. You don't really have to answer it. All right. All right. I want to start by testing your editing skills. All right.
Why'd you look at me, Carl?
Well, because I'm going to start with you.
Oh,
Katie.
okay.
There you go. Since you just volunteered yourself, we're going to go ahead and start with you. Okay. You each get 1 minute to introduce yourself. Where are you from? Where'd you go to school? And how did you end up at Richland Source? And Katie, since you volunteered, you voluntold, you get to go first.
Hi, my name's Katie Ellington Serrao. I grew up in Belleville, Ohio. I'm a Clear Fork High School grad. I went to college in Wilmore, Kentucky. Picture Belleville, but smaller.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm picturing Belleville is smaller. I'm coming up with Sarahsville down in southeast Ohio, but that's a whole other story. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I went to Asbury University. I studied journalism and Spanish and moved back home. Worked at the Mount Vernon News for a little bit, and then a job opened up here. So I threw my hat in the ring, and here we are.
All right. Grace, same question to you.
Okay. I'm Grace McCormick. I'm the business reporter at Richland Source. I've been here just over 2 years now. So I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, studied journalism, minored in economics at Ball State University, where David Letterman also graduated from. And then I found Richland Source just through journalismjobs.com, I believe. And yeah, pretty happy here.
All right. And then finally, last but not least, lest she get a complex, Mariah, you're up.
Wow, Carl. That was feisty. Hi, folks. I'm Mariah Thomas. I am Ashland Source's education beat reporter, and I also cover workforce development over at Ashland Source. And I am there via a program called Report for America. And I went to school. I grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona, lived down there for 13 years, and then I moved up to Helena, Montana, where I finished out high school. And I came here to Ashland Source from the University of Montana, where I studied journalism and political science and a little bit of history. And like I said, I'm here with a program called Report for America, and its whole purpose is matching journalists with local newsrooms like Richland and Ashland Source with a goal of reinvigorating local news. So thought the mission was really important, threw my hat in the ring, and about a year later, here I am.
From Montana to Mansfield, it's the M&M Project.
Absolutely.
All right, well, the three of you recently completed a kind of a massive project called Tomorrow's Talent, a wide-ranging series that explored North Central Ohio's workforce trends and how different organizations, including businesses and schools, are adapting to current challenges. And I think I read that right off one of your 24 stories. 24?
Something like that, yeah.
24. I thought you guys would know. I just wanted to throw it out so you could correct me. But thank you for chiming in. This is a live show. So where did the idea for tomorrow's talent come from, and what was your goal? And I'm going to throw that out to whoever wants to jump in. You guys discuss amongst yourselves.
I was going to say, I think Katie or Grace might be best equipped to answer this one, because this project actually kind of had its roots begun before I even got here, with a community member who came forward and presented an idea to these guys. So I was tapped in a little later in the game.
Okay.
Yeah, Dory Diab, who is the president of North Central State College, he approached us with kind of a pitch, something he wanted us to consider, basically noting the shortage of higher education in the area. Richland, Ashland, surrounding counties, they all have much lower rates of post-secondary education than the state of Ohio at large. And, you know, he was kind of speaking about that from concern about the education gap and the skills gap. And the series ended up growing a lot more. I mean, really, there's only one or two stories that are focused on post-secondary higher education. We kind of broadened it and looked more at the workforce as a whole. What skills do people need? What skills are they lacking? How are Gen Zers, are today's high schoolers and young adults, how are they finding their career paths? Are they aware of what's out there? Are they prepared? Things like that.
Grace, where did this mission creep come from? I mean, you and Katie get together and there's this idea that Dory Diab has about a lack of post-secondary education. You're the business reporter. When did it click in your head that this could be something a lot more than that?
Well, I know that Dr. Diab had approached our publisher, Jay Allred, originally, just saying this is the stats that he's noticing, and he wanted Source Media to dig a little deeper. So we got together and wanted to talk to some businesses, see the skills gap that businesses are noticing in the hiring process. So we did some research over the summer of 2023, put together a pitch document. Mariah joined us in, was it July, August?
I think that I joined onto this project last September.
Okay.
Yep.
But you came to the company in like July or August?
Last July.
Okay. So Mariah had been on staff less than 2 months, and we said, join this huge project. But yeah, it's just something that we had definitely flared out at the beginning, and then Larry had us cut down to like 10 stories, and then it blossomed past that anyway.
And then she's talking about Larry Phillips, our managing editor, and that's what managing editors do. They take your flare and they pull out a machete and they say, I don't really think we need to publish all of this. So he probably said like 10 stories, and then you guys regrew it to 35 or something.
Yeah.
Since you don't know the number, I'm just going to keep coming up with it.
No, it's around 24, I think. But yeah, that's the thing, is like workforce development is such a broad issue. Like, you could take all of us off our regular beats and have us cover nothing but workforce development for the next 2 years, and we'd have plenty to write about. But so yeah, we kind of had to scale the project down and focus on just a few key points, I think.
Once you finally kind of got started on the actual reporting of this, what was the goal, the overall goal? At the end of this, when you were all done, how would you know we succeeded or we fell short?
I think my goal was to reach both business owners and students, because everyone had talked about, students don't want to work, or they don't know what opportunities are out there. And then the businesses are saying that the students don't know the opportunities, and students are saying that they are professional, they just aren't given the chance necessarily. So I know that I personally wanted to reach both of those audiences. With our event that we did on September 5th, we did little takeaway packages for business owners, government officials, students, teachers, parents. I don't think I'm educators, but yeah, so that was the goal, I think, was just to reach those audiences that needed this data and these stories. And I think I would say it's successful, but I am hoping that we still reach more people, because we want to see collaboration and working across sectors a little bit more, because some of the solutions we found were leadership development and working across sectors, like with the governor's executive workforce board, for example. So just getting involved past your sector a little bit.
Yeah, kind of building off of that, I think that there's a lot of different ideas in different spheres about how to navigate these challenges that the workforce is facing. I mean, businesses are working on upskilling, employees to help with retention. They're working on, like how to get employees in the door in the first place. And teachers are working on preparing students to go out into the workforce or to go to college. And colleges are also trying to prepare students for this, like, the careers of tomorrow, with things that are drastically shifting thanks to technology. And it's just all of these things working on their own aren't necessarily getting to the answers that they need to push the ball forward, so to speak. But everybody working together, I think, is a much more effective way to do that. And I think that this series really explored some of those intersections and where there's room for more of them.
I think one of the really cool things that you guys did as part of the project is a pretty massive survey. And Katie, talk about that. Where did the idea for that come from? How did you execute it? And what's kind of the biggest one or two things you took away from that survey?
Oh, gosh. I'm not even sure I remember where the idea came from. I just know that, we wanted to go past just reporting the stereotypes on Gen Z and, what parents say about them and what educators say about them. And, Mariah and I did get the chance to sit down and have real-life face-to-face conversations with some very, bright, articulate young people. But we wanted to create some localized data to pull from. So we worked together to create a 10-question survey, anonymous, voluntary, and it asked high school students about their career aspirations, their thoughts on college, and we shared it with every, I'll say, kind of traditional public school district in Richland and Ashland County. So we sent it to all the high school principals, all the superintendents, and said, pretty please share this with your student body. It's not collecting any personal information. We just want the data. We'll share it with you. It's for this reporting project we're working on. And many of those local school districts were willing to do that for us. And so we ended up getting about 1,100 responses from 9th through 12th graders throughout Richland and Ashland counties. I could dig into the data all day because it's so fun. But I think maybe the biggest takeaways for me were, what is influencing students' career aspirations. We gave them kind of a list of factors, asked them to rate them 1 to 4 based on how relevant they were. 74% of teenagers said that their own research is very or extremely influential when it comes to deciding a career path. Other really common factors were like family, social media, teachers and coaches, and some of the least influential things were career assessment tests and their peers, which I thought was super interesting. I thought kids were going to be more influenced by their peers than they reported. And then we also asked about, what they want from a career. Work-life balance emerged as the most important thing across the board, but we also found that teenagers, they value a lot of the same things that their parents and grandparents did. Salary, their relationships with their boss and their coworkers, their opportunities to grow at work. What we also found is that they don't seem to care that much about working from home. Which,
cool.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
That shocked me. But, Mariah, do you have anything to add? Because we kind of worked on this survey together. What were your big takeaways?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it right on the nose. It just was, even for me, I'm technically in that Gen Z, group. And it was really, really interesting to see that work-life balance come out on top for me, and also to see that work from home come out on the bottom, because I feel like those two things, at least in my mind, go hand in hand. And it was really interesting to see that some of these younger teens saw them that drastically differently, that, you know, they want to go into a traditional office, they want to have relationships with their coworkers, they want all of those kinds of things, and yet at the same time, you know, they don't want to be at home doing it. And I think we've talked a lot. One of the things our survey didn't ask was for the why behind these teens' answers, because that would have just made it way too lengthy, and I don't think that they probably would have filled the whole thing out if we'd asked them why for everything. But I do think that perhaps, you know, the COVID pandemic probably played a role in that. You know, it was really hard to build those face-to-face connections, and I think that a lot of us are craving those right now.
Well, it's interesting because it doesn't shock me that work-life balance, and we're going to talk more about that in a minute, is at the top and work from home would be at the bottom, and here's why. The good news is you can work from home. The bad news is you can work from home. Sure. So you're never not at work. I mean, when I can sit at home and write the same stories and make the same phone calls and do the same things that I can do here, then I suddenly never have a time away from this laptop and my telephone. Wait, that's kind of true anyway. Never mind. Give me the top 2 or 3 things that you learned from your reporting about employers and or students / young employees. And we'll let anybody that wants to start.
Okay. I guess I can start. I also, before we completely move on from the student survey, big shout out to Andrew Morrison from Zane State College. He took those 100,000 plus data points, visualized them for us, and they are very easy to walk through. You can find it online at richlandsource.com or ashlandsource.com.
Good job. Plug the site. Always plug the site.
Yeah, but takeaways from employers and students. We definitely found that there is a communication gap. We also did a business survey of around 94 business leaders who were either in charge of hiring or somehow involved in the hiring process. And I believe that 90% of them, let me check myself there. So 90% of them said that communication is important to their business, which makes sense. I mean, you all have to, you have to be able to communicate with your, even if you're not in a public facing role, then you have to be able to communicate with your coworkers. And I know that Mariah and I had gone to like a half-day training in Knox County on how to bridge those communication gaps between generations, because students or younger people might prefer to text or email rather than jump on a call. And so I think everyone knows how to communicate, but it might be teaching those professionalism skills, especially to younger workers. I think there needs to be a better sense of patience, because I mean, like Mariah and I, this is our first like professional newsroom job, so I feel like we've definitely learned throughout here. And Carl, as much as you might hate to admit, being a soft teddy bear on the inside, I think you and some of our leaders.
Don't say that out loud. That's the part you edit that, Hiser. That part's
yeah, but I don't know. Like I think there's definitely leaders like in our workplace and other workplaces who have said like patience is more key than what we realize. Like you can't expect a 22-year-old to come in and just like know how to work, and especially some of those soft skills. But I found that soft skills were very important, and more important than I realized during this process. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I guess kind of building onto that idea of like young people don't come into the workplace knowing everything. And I think in the past, some of the sources I talked to who are employers who filled out our survey and everything, they kind of told me a little bit about how it can be risky to take chances on sending young people to big professional development opportunities, because that costs the company money, and young people can be really hard to retain. You know, it's their first job. They don't know what to expect. Maybe they love it. Maybe they don't. Maybe they find out they're looking for more. And so one of the things that I really went in deep on was this idea of upskilling. And there are some ways that, you know, the state government has started pairing with business owners to kind of help them take away that risk. So, namely, tech cred is a big one where, once employees finish their certifications, a business can apply and to the state and get money reimbursed to them for their employees completing credentials. And I had a lot of business owners who talked to me. I had a few business owners who talked to me about just the fact that is such a help in building up the skills of their younger employees and their workforce, and helping to retain them, stopping some of them from leaving. Because if you feel like a company is investing in you, then it's a lot harder to walk away from that, because you're getting those personal learning opportunities and chances for growth, which were also very important factors for Gen Z of what they were looking for in a workplace. So that was a big one for me.
Yeah.
Katie, what about you? The top one or two things you learned from your reporting in this process?
I mean, I think like I was saying earlier, the survey data was one of my favorite things to really dive into. I think the other one is just the vast amount of opportunities and pathways that exist for today's young people. Once upon a time when I was in high school 6 years ago, not 6, 10.
You're getting old.
Yeah, I know. Truly.
I didn't say that out loud.
Truly.
Doggone it.
You kind of had, you're a college-bound student or you're a career tech student. And now, career tech students often aspire to college. More kids are going directly into the workforce. There are apprenticeship programs. And I think there were always apprenticeship programs. People just weren't as aware of them. Ohio Technical Centers is, the best way I can think to sum it up easily is it's like a career tech school, but for people who have graduated high school. So it's a little more advanced, and you leave, able to be a dental assistant, things like that. So yeah, just the variety of options, and that will all lead you to a good life, and the ongoing challenge of communicating all of those options to parents and teenagers is probably the biggest takeaway for me.
If I asked 20 young workers, what is work-life balance, how many different answers would I get?
20.
20?
Yeah, I think it looks different for each individual person. My work-life balance isn't going to look like your work-life balance, probably.
Carl's work-life balance is non-existent.
Carl's a machine. Carl had Alexander Hamilton.
Carl had to take vacation last year under duress. You could tell he was bitter about it.
There were things to do. See, when I started, now keep in mind this was when I got out of college, it was 1983. And we talk about upskilling, we were using typewriters. Okay, so when people tell me that I am, that I don't keep up with tech, I'm like, well, let's see where you're at in 40 years. But I started out as a sports editor and the only sports person at this little newspaper in Fostoria. And my second day on the job, they handed me this thing and said, this is the football tab, and you have to get it done. And it's 126 pages, and that's in addition to the daily sports section. And we have to have this done in about 3 weeks. I mean, there was just, my work-life balance was, I kid you not, the air conditioner in the newsroom on the second floor of the Review Times didn't work. So it was like 95 degrees in this room. So I was so mobile, I picked up my IBM Selectrix 2 electric typewriter, and once I got the paper out, and took it to my apartment where it was air conditioned, and produced and worked. I worked from home way back in 1983.
Before it was cool.
Way before it was cool. And it was a heavy typewriter to have to carry. So I'm just curious. I hear work-life balance all the time, and honest to God, I don't know what that means. But I guess it means you're happy with, whoever is happy with their work-life balance is happy with the amount of work they do and the amount of life.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, exactly what you said, their work doesn't stop them from having a life outside of work. So getting to go to your kids' soccer games in the evening, or, getting to have days off where, your company doesn't expect you to start working if something crazy happens, getting to take family vacations and unplug and, pursue your hobbies, have time with your family, things like that.
All right. Well, what's the single biggest difference you found in the employee age groups of Gen Z, Millennials, Gen X, and Baby Boomers? And you each can pick one of the biggest difference you found between those age groups.
I think Grace talked about it earlier, but one of the big things that I just know firsthand and that I wrote about in this series was just the communication and the different styles of communication. And that is so fascinating to me. Obviously, the older generations way prefer that phone call, face-to-face interaction, all of those kinds of things, versus a younger generation is like, save me the time. I'm going to text you or email you about it, This doesn't have to be a meeting. This can be an email. And I think that can, like Grace was talking about earlier, it can come off as like, younger generations not having the ability to do those face-to-face conversations. And I think that there's a lot of interesting conversation about that out there. And I think that for me, the kicker is just that these younger generations, it's not that they can't do a face-to-face interaction. They're perfectly capable. It's just that, like we're talking about with work-life balance, they value that time. And unless it's something that they view as valuable to be having those interactions over the phone or face-to-face, I think that it is just that preferred via text communication. Or, they'll communicate their boundaries more sometimes or something like that. And I think that it's just interesting, that communication gap for sure.
Grace, what about you?
I think, and this kind of stemmed from the training that we went to. I don't even remember when it was in Mount Vernon, but
it was back in April.
Okay. I think the communication of expectations is something that's probably where the stereotype of Gen Z or millennials being entitled, like they'll ask for a raise or a bonus or a higher salary, like when they've only been at the company for, let's say, a few months. But I think that's something that I was very curious in, because like an older generation, a boomer or a Gen X might say, okay, I'll take this salary and then I'll prove myself, and then the company is going to reward me. But I kind of wonder if, like, growing up during the Great Recession, during the COVID-19 pandemic, if like those younger generations just know that I might have to take a pay cut if something drastic happens, so I might as well ask for what I think I'm worth now. And yeah, just the communication of expectations, I think, could be very different. I mean, I'm a member of Gen Z also, and I didn't apply to any jobs that didn't have the salary listed. This was, I don't know, and I think a lot of people in my age group are similar. So we had talked about in our takeaways of, for business owners, like, be as clear as you can be about salary, benefits, what you'll earn there, and what you'll earn can also be experiences too. There's plenty of opportunities to learn and grow that aren't salary based, but then also be descriptive of those skills and experiences that you want the employees to have as well. It's like a two-way street of not just expecting somebody to know something and being passive aggressive about it, I guess. But
to kind of piggyback off what Grace said, it made me think of an event that I attended, Crestview Local Schools, as part of their back to school professional development. They had a speaker, his name's Mark Perna, and he's kind of this is what he does. He speaks about workforce development and engaging with youth and Gen Z. And something that he said over and over again in his presentation is that Gen Z isn't willing to take anything on faith like previous generations were. Like, they don't expect the company to care about them or, reward them for their hard work. They think that they need to demand what they're worth, because if not, they're not going to be rewarded. It's not gonna just happen, and they're willing to stand on that principle until they get what they want, what they think they deserve. It kind of goes along with the idea of mutual respect that seems very important to Gen Z. Sometimes they think they are very bold about presenting their thoughts, their ideas, and sometimes they think that they should have more of a voice than maybe their more experienced coworkers think they should have. But they do kind of have this idea that, like, I shouldn't have to earn my respect. Everyone should just respect each other from the get-go in the workplace.
Now, this whole project obviously could not have happened, certainly not to the extent and the scale that it did, without some great local sponsors. I want to give you guys a chance to talk about those sponsors and kind of, what's the expression younger folks use, a shout out? Did I do that right?
Yeah, sure.
Excellent, Carl. I'm very proud of you.
Man, that expression slaps.
Yes, it does.
Look at me.
It's different, even.
Yeah, I'm like Gen Z all over myself. Well, anyway, who were the sponsors? Who paid for the work that you guys just did?
So I have our graphic up with all of them, so I can just read them off real quick. So major thank you to Gorman Rupp Pumps, North Central State College, Spherion, the Ohio State University Mansfield, Ashland County Community Foundation, Mechanics Bank, Alumni Roofing, Ideal Electric, the Area 10 Workforce Development Board, and Ohio Health.
Yes, thank you very much to all of those groups. And now I know you think that we're just about done, but you guys don't realize it's time for our weekly segment called On the Record. I'm going to ask each of you some rapid-fire short answer questions. You only get 5 seconds to give me an answer. And it's your opinion, so there's no wrong answer unless you take too long. And I've got these written down. We're going to kind of go around the room. And we'll start with Katie. Millennial or Gen Z, which do you claim?
Millennial.
Okay, Grace, you. Best of the 100 or 200 music concerts that you've seen this year?
Oh, my gosh. Bob Dylan was really good on Thursday.
All right, Mariah. When will Travis Kelce pop the question to T Swift?
Oh, the Super Bowl.
All right. Back to you. Well, he's not going to be playing in it, so he might as well go ahead and ask.
You're wrong. The Chiefs are going to win it again this year.
Back to you, Katie. Hardest vegetable to grow in a backyard garden?
Ooh. Zucchini.
All right. You almost took too long, and you almost got the buzzer. So
I don't know.
The buzzer.
This year has just sucked generally
That's the
for
buzzer.
gardening.
Okay, Grace. What the hell is a Hoosier?
It's somebody from Indiana.
Okay, I can't argue with that. I don't know if it's accurate, but I can't argue. Mariah, worst to find in your apartment, a mouse or a leaking roof?
A mouse.
Katie, worst ethnic food you've ever tasted?
There was a restaurant, I don't want to say the name, but Mexican food with no flavor.
Okay. Grace, worst part of having to sit next to Larry Phillips in the office?
His loud ringtone.
Okay.
Preach.
And Mariah, last one. Why isn't Meet Me in Montana by Dan Seals and Marie Osmond the state's official song?
I could not tell you, Carl.
Oh, you let me down. I wanted to bring a Montana story.
I honestly don't even know what Montana's state song is.
Well, we know it's not Meet Me in Montana by Dan Seals and Marie Osmond.
Yeah, I do know the University of Montana's fight song, and that one has some intriguing lyrics.
Yeah, it didn't work against South Dakota the other night. So.
No, it didn't.
All right, folks, we're going to have to leave it at that for today. I'll be back in a second to put a bow on this week's podcast. Until then, please remember what Mark Twain said. If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything.